Okay, it is 12:22. This is video number 2. I didn't plan it that way. And I'm eating lunch, so bear with me. Um, this particular video, and again, I'm not trying to belabor things like I usually do. This particular video is what I call the content video. The first video, which was a lot briefer than this one was going to be, was kind of a housekeeping video, but had a very important component, two important components. One was about the final assignment, and the other one was about how to do a cross impact matrix, a simple one, and how you need to be able to do that in order to do the last discussion question. And it is a last discussion question as the semester rapidly evaporates. So watch that video with great care, and watch this video with great care. If I had a magic wand, and don't throw your shoe at me, I'd extend the course another 2 weeks, and I'd probably do a whole heck of a lot more with discussion questions, and even probably some sort of assignment about these other change theories. These other change theories are just fine, and they show a lot of validity, but that would not be fair to you for any number of reasons. So we're not going to do that. I had mentioned in the video 1 that as I've been doing pretty much the whole semester, I have a video. I always put up an agenda or some sort of lesson plan for you to refer to, and I always put the links up for things I need for you to connect to. And this video and this module are no exception. And so let me just share it with you for a very, very brief moment. Moment's over. No, not yet. I think it's this one. No, it's not. All right, again. Well, maybe it is this one. Okay, it is. How do you like that? Okie doke. So you will have seen video 1 and all my little yellows and reds and blues. And now you see another yellow that says video number 2, more leadership and change theories. And there are about as many change theories as the stars in the sky. They all have some of the same principles, LES, with some variations. And usually the variations are emphases. Now, where there's a doctoral class, and every single one of you, I'd encourage to go and enroll in a doctoral program at St. John's, because I think you have some real talent. And in order for you to be able to get the muscles to truly enact that talent, the doctorate would be not only to your advantage, but and to your personal growth, but also to the children and stakeholders whom you serve. That's the promise. But that's another conversation. So what I decided to do is, and I'll do is, I may even do it next week, but I can think of one other person at least I'd like to address. His name is Kolter, Kolter. You can look him up if you want, but I'm not sure I'll do that one. But these 3 change theories, leadership theories, and again, there are more than we could shake a stick at, are oh, I just realized I didn't put one of the links up. Okay. Or ones I think highly of. Okay. And they are trait theory, TRAIT, Hersey and Blanchard. Let me put that in there. And Simon Sinek. Trait theory, I'm going to have some videos to show you to take you through. Again, I'm not going to put a video on for you to watch videos. I need you to look at the videos at your leisure. But I also would recommend, again, since this is an asynchronous class, that you do look at them, because you may get some ideas about how you want to approach some things in your action design. Like, you will get ideas, I hope, and I think that's really why these change theories. Now, I know a lot of you, and I was there too, although I've become a theory nerd. Most of the time I teach theory. I often teach theory class. And I often get somebody, roll their eye, more than one person, roll their eye. Oh, this is all theory and all ivory tower and all that other business. Until I squeeze it out of them that they saw this particular theory in action, and they recognize it now after the fact that that's what it was an example of. Would that you might have been able to have or experienced a better outcome had you been aware of some of these premises. And that's why we're doing some of these theories. At any rate, again, we're talking about trait theory, Hersey and Blanchard, and Simon Sinek, somebody whom I've only discovered myself actually from some of my students 2 or 3 years ago. And I don't know what theory he specifically stands for, but I do enjoy listening to him. And I think he makes a lot of sense, especially when it comes to cultural change. So we're going to talk about that. You'll notice that there's a link missing, and I'll get that in there in a moment. Enough said. So here we go. In fact, I'm going to do that before you pull up because I know that you're going to be wanting this one. Because this is my favorite one in this list. It's not my favorite theory. My favorite theory begins with an F, ends with a G, as you know. Enough said. Okay, so let's take a look at trait theory. I will bring it up. And I'm praying that you see this. I think you do. And no, the dog is not part of the theory.
Hello, and welcome to today's lesson, where we're looking at
not going to watch all of it, just some of
it.
Leadership.
Now, the trait theory of leadership sets out to help identify future leaders, and it's based on the idea that great leaders are born with inherent traits that enable them to become great. Now, from this idea, the aim of trait theory is twofold. So firstly, it aims to find the traits these great leaders have in common. And secondly, it aims to use these traits to identify future leaders. Now, it's one of the oldest leadership theories in existence. And in fact, it can trace its origins back to Thomas Carlyle's 1849 quote, that the history of the world is but the biography of great men. Now, this belief, or that quote, is often called the great man theory. Now, before we move on, in psychological terms,
this is Mongolia, and we are Nada. The only company in the world.
You are the combination of nature plus nurture. So you inherit your genetic makeup, but you're also the sum of your lived experiences. Now, the trait theory of leadership is based on the idea that great leaders are born and not bred. So trait theory does not take any account of how you might develop over time. It's entirely focused on nature and not nurture. Now, over the years, there have been hundreds of research studies done to identify the traits of great leaders. And no two studies have resulted in the same list of traits. You can see a sample of some of those studies in this image, and let's very briefly run through each of them. Now, the first happened in 1948, and a guy called...
No, we're not going to go over all of the research, although it is interesting, at least to me. Now, some 20 years ago was the most recent person that they're talking about Zakharov, Kemp, Bader. And those I'll point out to you, because you can relate to this. I don't know if I buy this. I'm more nearly of the opinion, because I believe in collective empowerment, as I've told you 1,000 times, that you can train people to be great leaders. And the same way you can train someone to hit a home run, or to run the 4-minute mile, or sink a 3-pointer, or write a great novel. Some people will do it better than others because they may have some natural inclinations and talents to move that. call it DNA if you want. I can't run a 4-minute mile. I don't think any of you can run a 4-minute mile either, although if even a 4-minute mile actually is not the standard anymore. We use about how fast someone can run a mile. And I can't hit a 400-foot home run anymore. That's not really true either, but I could hit a ball over a fence at one time. I don't know if I can still do it. But at any rate, yeah, there's probably some DNA involved with tendencies, that sort of thing. But it doesn't mean, as I believe strongly, personally, from anecdotal points as well as the research, that everyone can be trained to be a great leader, a good leader. I'll qualify that. So these characteristics that they're pointing out, the traits of a leader, sort of innately, emerging from among, but maybe brought out through their training, would be extroversion, which I am not, by the way. I'm very much introverted. That might surprise you, but I am an introvert rather than an extrovert. But I think I was probably a pretty good leader most of the time, in spite of the fact that I was much more nearly introverted than extroverted. Cognitive abilities means, how smart somebody is. I don't necessarily think everyone's got to be smart certainly to be an extrovert or to influence other people. And I could point to some people in the current news that might be good examples of that. Conscientious. Well, that's a trait. There's no question about that. Caring about other people, having empathy for other people, and showing that to form good human relationships, of course. Emotional stability. There's been a lot of, I'm going to use the word great in air quotes. There's been a lot of great leaders who were not stable. Let's put it this way. There were leaders who were not stable and did a lot of things, for better or for worse, and more nearly for worse. For some reason, Nero is sticking in my mind, because I think we're going to Rome this summer, man. So I'm thinking about Roman emperors. But Nero is probably a good example of a leader who was not stable. I'm thinking of World War II. And the obvious example was Hitler. Hitler was a very strong leader, whether we like to admit it or not. It was not emotionally stable. Nor was he open. Nor most leaders I think of who aren't necessarily all that open for lots of reasons. Agreeable? I don't know what that means. Motivated, or can motivate other people? Yes, I could definitely see that as an. And the word that comes to mind is a word that has been beaten up or used far too often in the last 3 or 4 years. Here it comes: influencers. The ability to get other people to think like they do, or to be interested in what you have to say. My wife watches a lot of YouTubes, and she watches. I think there's one woman she watches. The woman is 86 years old, and she's shows how she puts on makeup. I can't imagine why anybody would want to know how or why this woman uses makeup. Though when she puts the makeup on, she doesn't look like she's 86. I mean, I'll give her that. My wife watches her, and the woman has something like 200,000 viewers. She influences 200,000 viewers. One of them is my wife, which I point out to her every now and then. And if anybody knows anything about YouTube, you know that those people get paid by the number of viewers they have, and some of them make pretty well. So if you have 200,000 viewers, you're making a living. So yes, they motivate people to do that, and I presume they have some kind of social intelligence, which is not always my strong suit, to be honest with you. People who know how to navigate among other people, maybe because I am, quite frankly, much more introverted than you may imagine. So that they use their skills to navigate around situations and things that they may not feel that necessarily feel that good at. Self-monitoring. Yeah, I buy that. Any good leader monitors himself, and has emotional intelligence, so-called EQ, and can problem solve. Now, is that the example of trait theories? Those are traits of a good leader. Can you learn them? I think you can. From other people in different experiences. So I'll leave it at that, but it is a dominant theory. I wouldn't say it's, and what it has to do with change is if someone like yourself sees that there's, go back to the case study in the action design assignment, who sees something that's got to be done because there are real issues here that have to be approached short term and long term, then you need to have those qualities in order to, or most of them anyway, at any given time, to not only to get the change to occur, but also to make sure that it has lasting power, which is where a lot of change loses its mileage, so to speak. I'll stop there with that. I don't want it to belabor it all so much, but that's what I think you'll get some benefit out of learning from that camp. So you can watch the whole thing if you want. I urge you to do that, but it's not necessary to do it now. So I'm going to bring up my favorite one, other than the F word one, the futuring word one. Hersey and Blanchard. Let's start this from the beginning.
Very little support and a whole lot of direction, your style will be directing towards them. If you have an individual who needs both a lot of support and a lot of directing, your style will be coaching towards that individual. Someone who knows what to do, but
all right, I didn't start this from the beginning. I don't know how to restart this, so I'm going to take it from here because this is the biggie right here. This is called situational leadership. All right, and you go, and this little graph that you see here is beautiful. I apologize for its how small it may be. You may want to look it up more carefully in Google or whichever, or one of your leadership books. So let me walk you through some of this. All right, you'll see that you have a box divided into 4 pieces. There's D4, D3, D2, and D1. Now follow my arrow, going from this corner here, from low, and I'm going right to left to right, so I'm sorry. It talks about directive behavior. This is what you do. I want you to do this. First you do this, then you do that. Don't do this, don't do that. That's clearly high directive behavior versus low. And I say, oh yeah, do whatever you want. And then there's all these gradations between the S4 and the S1. I'm sorry, the D1 and the the D4 and the D1. Now you go back to that corner again and go up. Now you see supportive behavior. And that speaks to where exactly what the verb sounds like, where the leader, to the extent to which the leader supports his or her stakeholders to lead with him or her and to connect with everybody else to make the whole premise work. But that's not really what, so there's these 2 axes. One is supportive behavior versus directive behavior, not against each other. It's just 2 types of behaviors. What's more important here is the graph inside the box. Notice how it goes up and then it goes back down again. All right. So really what you're saying here is, now think about your own school. Think about your own school situation. And then you can begin to see how this works out. If we're talking about the yellow now we're talking D3, where there is high supportive behavior, and fairly low directive behavior. So what they're basically saying is, we're going to help you be what you are to be effective. and we'll tell you what to do when you need to be told what to do. But on whole with a W, we're going to give you your head to take care of business. We trust you. There's that word. We trust you. Okay. Now going clockwise around, staying in the yellowish approach. Now we're looking at D2. And that would be coaching. Now in this case, all right, it is what it sounds like. Now you're directing but now you're coaching people to learn how to be leaders as such. And so you're working from high supportive behavior, but you're also, and you're also working to high directive. It's high direct and high behavior on high supportive. Okay. Now working your way back down back around clockwise. When you're in red, when you're in S1, you're in high directive behavior, but low supportive. And then finishing the circle, when you are in S4, you're in low directive behavior and you're in low supportive behavior. Now, another way to look at this is this way. I worked in a school with highly supportive. We were arranged in teams. The teams learned how to work with each other. The principal made sure that we did it. But not with a whip and a gun. Basically, he just kept his finger on the pulse of how things were to be. I like to think that's how I was a principal too, but I think some people might say I was more coaching than not because that building needed to be more coached. They didn't know how to do that. I told you the story a few times already. So they give them a change. They needed to be shown how and how they need to be highly supported to enact the change. And they needed to be directed now and then. In fact, they wanted to be directed more than I wanted to direct them. I think I told you those stories a couple of times. Thank heavens, I never worked in a school that's highly directive, okay, and very low supportive. I've never done it. I've never been part of a school like that. I've been very, very fortunate. When I hear the war stories from my students, I get the idea that you are. Sometimes, not all of you, but sometimes, occasionally, for one reason or another. Here comes the word, situationally. Situationally. And then you come back around the other way. I worked in schools as a consultant where the directive behavior was low and so was the supportive behavior. And you know what that was? Chaos. I worked in a school district, I was consulted in the school district, and everybody, all the administrators, kept telling the teachers how wonderful they were. They were all, John Deweys and wonderful, 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 and worked against the odds of all the challenges that they have. And basically, they were told, do what you have to do. Do what you want. We trust you. You're working hard. And the fact of the matter is, yeah, there were people who were doing that, but there were other people, a great bulk of the people who were very content to sit back around the campfire and hang out. These are sometimes the places where Friday afternoons, and today being Friday, I guess it sticks in my mind more than others, where everybody go down to the local bar, administrators and teachers, and have a grand old time because everybody loved each other, okay, but they weren't effective together. In that school, the building I told you I worked in, I started out in, that shaped my thinking about leadership from before you were born, was one where people really cared about each other. There was high relationships, and we went to our share of Friday afternoon things. But it was all about supporting each other to do the best job we could, as we saw it to be necessary. And there's nothing wrong with coaching either. There are times when situationally you need to coach, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And then there is directing, and that's the one where you have to roll up. You as a principal or a chair need to roll up your sleeves and take care of business. Because in the end, you answer for that as such. Now, in that little red square there, I'm thinking of a fellow I used to work with who was a friend of mine, actually, up to a point until I soured on his ethics, to be quite frank, who needed to be told what to do, because if you didn't tell him what to do, he wouldn't do anything, and who didn't have any support to change that. Until finally, I quite frankly took, when I became his supervisor, I took it upon myself to, you should pardon the word, supervising. And I observed his classes, every week, and I took lesson plans and I told him, this has to change and this is good, but that has to change and so forth. And by golly, I'm bragging, he changed. Did he ever become John Dewey? No. But he got the job done. And he told me, he says, no one's ever really, shown me what the things that you've shown me, and I'm okay with this. Let me do it. In many respects, though, I think that by research, the most effective kind of school is one that's highly supportive with direction when necessary. And that's the point. Situationally, if you see things going left rather than right, you step in and say, listen, I need this to change. Here's what you need to do. You might say to them, tell me what you think we need to do. But if they stand there and say, well, I don't know, you tell me, then you tell them. So I kind of a blend between those two. Now, in my view, Hersey and Blanch, this model, I'm not doing it the justice that it deserves. This Hersey-Blanchard model should influence how your planning should be. Unless you foresee the building that you're trying to design your plan for, falls in the red or the darker green. And maybe you want to tell me that if that's the case. Okay, so now we move over to the last one. I'm not going to play it all, but I really urge you to watch it. I have to find it. Is this it? No. Where is it? That's not it either. Give me a minute. Oh boy. I can't find the one I was looking for, but before this comes up, I want to use a word that I don't think I've used with you as such yet. And I'm a little chagrined that I haven't done that. So, no, this is the wrong one. Gee, gosh. That's 30 minutes. We won't do that one to you. I guess I'll use this one, but I'm only going to use it for a few sentences. I'm talking about the difference between transformational leadership and transactional leadership. Transformational leadership versus transactional leadership. Here's an example of transactional leadership. Coach comes up to me toward the end of the school year and say, hey, Rich, are you doing the schedule for next year? Yeah, I'm working on it now, Joe. Well, I coach football. Yeah, I know. I said, and you teach social studies, right? Yeah. But I need ninth period off. The last period of the day, I need it off. I said, is it prep time? Well, he said, well, not for school, not for teaching. He said, I need it for my coaching because I got to get into the locker room and make sure the equipment's set up, So I need the ninth period off. And I say, okay. And then the coach says, and you know what I'll do for you? I'll do the buses in the morning. I'll do the bus duties for you in the morning. And I say, okay. That's called transactional leadership. It's tit for tat. I trade this, you trade that. And I don't know how many of you watch MASH, and that's not a show that most people watch anymore. But if you ever watched MASH, the television series, a character in that series was Radar, and Radar was sort of like the secretary to the colonels he worked for, and he needed something. He needed there was one episode where they needed I think a salami or something like that. And he would get on the phone and he'd call around and he'd trade off this, that, and the other thing so he could get the salami that this whoever needed the salami for. And that's transactional. That's transactional. You know, go back to teaching, for example. This sounds sexist. I know it sounds sexist. I apologize because it is sexist. So I'll have to say it straight away. I might have a parent, a woman women would come in and say, I need first period off. And I would say, because, and they would say, I have to get my children on the bus. And then I'll do the science fair for you, this kind of thing. And sometimes the trade-off would sound like it was a good idea, but I can't claim that I always resisted it. But I have to tell you, I didn't make it easy to do anything transactional, because the minute you sold your soul one way, you have to sell it over and over again. So the more you tried to stay true to your principles, your LES principles, the better off I was in terms of getting my faculty to do it. It has to be done on whole and to be fair. Okay. But that's not a hard and fast premise to demonstrate, but that's the case. But the opposite of transactional is transformational. Now, I don't know if I've used the word enough in this course. I kind of think I have not, but I'm kind of regretting that. But what I'm driving at is, in the end, you have to be able to, or you should want to be able to get your whole building, your department, up into the yellow and orange squares. Because you want to transform them. You want them to make them more than they realize they can be. You want to use Fullen's idea from last week, you want to create capacity to take charge of things. I think I told this war story I'll tell it again real quick. I had to go I usually got to school pretty early when I was still teaching. But I was aspiring to be a leader at that point. I was taking courses and so forth. But that had nothing to do with it. And I would get to school maybe a half hour, 45 minutes before a lot of people. And just as I started to get into the school, this unbelievable ice storm came out of nowhere that nobody predicted it. And it coated everything with thick ice almost immediately. Buses and cars were slipping and sliding. It was just a terrible mess. I was already in the building. And maybe, 3 or 4 other teachers, like myself were there, but nobody else was there. I think kids started straggling in, kids who walked, I don't know how they managed to walk there, but kids were kind of straggling in, and it was a mess. The principal didn't get there on time, and he was always a guy very punctual, but and he only lived a couple of blocks from the school, but he couldn't get there either. So it could have been chaos. But we just stepped up. I'll say that I took the lead, but I certainly wasn't the leader as such. What I did was, okay, let's do this. We'll put the kids over here. We'll bring on a TV set. We'll put on, the cartoons, or we'll do something to keep the kids occupied and safe. And we'll work the whole thing out. And we did. So when the melt came and everybody got to school considerably much later than school ordinarily opened, principal came up to me. He says, "Hey, thanks a lot." I said, "You know why?" I said, "That's what we do, right? And I didn't say this, but I should have. But that's what you trained us to do. You transform me. When you become leaders, when you have the yell on your shoulder for leader, it's your job. But would you believe I'm getting sick again? I'm on another antibiotic. It's up to you to create leaders who don't even know they can be leaders. This goes back to how I reject trait leadership, to tell you the truth. Watch the Cynic video. Watch any Cynic video that you can, because he's very inspiring, but I don't feel the need to belabor it here. And so, folks, I think we're basically on the home stretch here. You have the 2 videos that you need to use for this particular week. And I'll probably do a video next week of some sort, but I'm not sure what it'll be about yet. So take care and have a good weekend.